Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I apologize. We had some technical difficulties on getting on, but I think it's time for a new laptop, inshallah. ICJ community, hope everyone is doing well. Assalamu alaikum. Hope everybody had a wonderful Ramadan and a unique Eid al-Fitr. And of course, now we're in the month of Shawwal. And today being the 16th of Shawwal, I just want to remind everybody in the community that the virtues of fasting the 6 days of Shawwal, it is as if the believer has fasted for the entire year. And so inshallah, we should take this opportunity. We have another 2 weeks, and you can spread out those 6 days over those 2 weeks to capture the virtues and the benefits, and of course the ajr and the hasanat of fasting in the month of Shawwal. So inshallah, today we're going to be continuing. We had taken a break for the month of Ramadan for this series on the lives of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is on the shoulders of giants. And today we will be covering Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu, and he is a personality, amongst the companions of the Prophet ﷺ that is very relevant to today, because we live in an affluent society. We have almost everything at our needs, right? Whereas, more than 50% of the world's population is struggling just to have food and water and specifically clean water. We are people that can go down to our refrigerators and open the fridge, and we have a variety of options. Literally, there's a buffet that's in front of us. And so we live, in a society of affluence, and we are the haves as opposed to being the have-nots. And so, maybe folks have challenges in their at a micro level, but on a macro level, we don't have to worry about that. If we were to flick on the switch, that the light will actually turn on, that if we were to turn on the faucet, that the water would be running. Those are luxuries and privileges that have been given to us, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed us with those bounties. And so this was the life that was lived by Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu. He was from a very wealthy family, his mother being Khunas bint Malik, and they gave him everything that a young child could would want and desire. One of the things that the Quraysh really held high about him was that he was extremely handsome, and it was said that when Mus'ab ibn Umair would pass, there would on his route there would be lines of women that would just be staring at him and basically whispering to him, and that he wore a scent that you could smell from blocks away. So he was, extremely pampered by his parents. He was given everything. And so much so also that his clothes were tailor fitted, right? So a lot of us, we have the luxury of being able to purchase clothes either off the rack, that's one level, right? And then if you go to Nordstrom or Bloomingdale's and what have you, you can buy clothes that are name brand. But he was somebody that had a custom tailor, and all of his clothes would be perfectly fitted. So these were clothes that don't even have a brand name, just a number. And this is another level of wealth and opulence that Mus'ab ibn Umair, who he enjoyed. So in modern day, he was like any celebrity with everything at his disposal, right? All of the best clothes, the best scents and perfumes, and all of that was given to him. So one could imagine that this could be somebody that could be seen as a young, spoiled brat, right? That he's given everything by his parents. Like, the kids that go to college and they show up to college in their Mercedes-Benz or BMW, and their parents have given them everything. And really, even after college, their future is probably set because the father has a business that the son can join, and so on and so forth. And so you can potentially mistake Mus'ab ibn Umair as part of this category. But, he starts to hear about these people that go to the house of Al-Arqam. This is where the Prophet ﷺ, he would give his bayan, he would give his lectures to the old, to the weak, of the Quraysh who had recently joined him in his quest as as he's spreading this message of Islam. And so he heard about this, and this is the first lesson that we take from Mus'ab ibn Umair's life, is that he is somebody that he took initiative. He didn't wait. A lot of times we say that, I want to perform Umrah, or I want to perform Hajj, or even I want to make up my prayers from yesteryear, from the years when I was an adolescent, but maybe I wasn't as regular in praying. And, it's recommended that either you do a lot of nawafil throughout the rest of your life, or it's recommended. Another opinion is that you actually try to quantify how many prayers you've missed, and you try to actually make those up. As same goes with fasting. And so a lot of people, they push that off. They push off Umrah, they push off Hajj, they push off all of these righteous acts to be done at a later time. And, not really acknowledging the fact that we have very, very limited time, that this is just a temporary abode. And so Mus'ab was somebody who took initiative, and he goes to the house of Al-Arqam, and he sees the Prophet ﷺ. He's there, and he is preaching about the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and specifically he's talking about Jahannam and Jannah and accountability. And immediately Islam enters his heart. The Prophet ﷺ, he puts his blessed hand on the heart of Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu. The companions that are there at that time are so pleased to see him, because they know that he's from a wealthy family and he is high in the socioeconomic status amongst the people of the Quraysh, that they're happy to see that somebody like that, of that stature, is going to be joining their ranks. And Mus'ab ibn Umair, he enters into Islam. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And so he capitalizes on it right away. He capitalizes on the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam right away. Now, somebody that, especially young and bold and energetic and as charismatic as Mus'ab ibn Umair was, it's very easy for him to say, like the way that Umair did, that I have now accepted Islam. It's time for me to go out into the public and start telling the people about this. And so he counsels with the Prophet ﷺ, and Nabi ﷺ, he tells him that, it's not going to be wise, because your mother has, she's going to be extremely upset. It's going to rattle the boat. It's going to rock the boat. And, maybe you want to now practice your deen, your Islam, privately for now, right? And this is the counsel that the Prophet ﷺ, he gives to him. And so during this time, Mus'ab ibn Umair, he attends the durus of the Prophet ﷺ at Darul Arqam as much as he can. He becomes extremely knowledgeable in the Quran, to the point that amongst his age group, he knew the most of the Quran. He was a wonderful reciter. His tilawa was excellent, and it was something that would mesmerize the companions when they heard him reciting the Quran. And eventually, a man by the name of Uthman ibn Talha, he finds out that Mus'ab has been going to Darul Arqam, and he immediately goes and basically tattles on Mus'ab ibn Umair to his mother. And when his mother finds out about this, that Mus'ab has left the religion of their forefathers, that he has abandoned their way of life, she almost loses her head. She's ready to spear him. She's ready to take him in front of the Kaaba and humiliate him in front of all of the tribes people and all of the family members, and let him learn this lesson that you are never to leave this way of life. And so when this happens, what she does is, instead of giving him and bringing physical bodily harm to him, she locks him up in a room. He's shackled, and guards are made to watch after him. Days go by, he's given just enough food and water, and so she's keeping him there. And her thought and philosophy and vantage point is really that we've given you so much, everything that we've given you, and you have the nerve and the audacity to leave the religion of our forefathers, right? That's where she's coming from. So Mus'ab then finds out that there is a convoy that's leaving for Abyssinia. And when he finds this out, he waits for one of the guards to fall asleep. He gets his wrists loose of the shackles, and he escapes to Habasha. He's there for some time. There's a rumor that circulates that Mecca has now once again become friendly to the Muslims, which turned out to be a false rumor. But at that time is when he comes back. And this is when the confrontation with his mother, Khunas bint Malik, happens, where she says that, have you learned your lesson after you've run away? It's now time for you to abandon the ways of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and come back to the ways of your forefather. And he says, no, I will never do this. He's not disrespectful to his mother, but at the same time, he works with her and he speaks to her with wisdom. And this is one of the main attributes of Mus'ab ibn Umair. As a young person, he understood how to speak eloquently and speak diplomatically with people so as not to stir them up, but also to get his point across, right? And so his mother says, well, if you want to follow Muhammad and his message, then all of this wealth that we've given to you, we are taking it from you. We're taking it from you. And sometimes as a child, you want to negotiate with your parents, that if you're getting $20 a week, how about just a little bit less, $10 a week? So, but Mus'ab ibn Umair, he's not concerned about the dunya at all. For 20 years, he's lived in the lap of luxury, and he's ready to give it up for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the message of Islam. And this is one of the cornerstones of his life, that throughout his life, once he entered Islam, it was all about sacrifice. It's all about sacrifice. And if you see anybody that's done anything great, and why we learn about them in Sunday school, and why we write biographies, and why in today, in June of 2020, we're talking about this personality, is because of the extreme levels of sacrifice that these people made. That once you enter into the deen and you take in the deen wholeheartedly and you start to work for the deen, then certainly you will be met with challenges. You will be met with challenges. That is, that comes as part of the package. And so she strips him of his clothes, so much so to the point where it says that Mus'ab ibn Umair had to leave his household, almost covering himself. And so he joins the ranks of the Prophet ﷺ, and it was said that he used to live and wander about like a homeless person. They're sitting in dars of the Prophet ﷺ, and they see Mus'ab ibn Umair. He's coming with these ragged sheepskin clothes. And, the companions, they start to cry and they start to weep. And they're thinking that this was Mus'ab ibn Umair, the jewel of Mecca, the young child that was pampered in the lap of luxury. He had everything and he left it all for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He left it for the way of Islam, for this deen, and he sacrificed everything. And they used to think about this and they used to cry every time they used to see Mus'ab ibn Umair come and sit amongst them in their circles. And so, at this point, he's now left from his mother's care. He is pretty much homeless. He continues to study with the Prophet ﷺ, and it was at this time that the first pledge of Aqaba, the first allegiance, the pledge of allegiance that came from the people of Yathrib of Medina. There were a few, about a number of 6 Muslims that came from Medina. And they asked the Prophet ﷺ to send somebody back with us. We will take care of him and that he could continue to teach us the religion. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, understand, he could have picked some of the top Sahaba. He could have picked Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. He could have picked Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. There are so many, top Sahabi that the Prophet ﷺ could pick. Who does he pick instead? He picks this young man, this young 20-something-year-old man, Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu, to accompany these people and continue to teach them their religion and teach them Quran and go back with them to Medina. And now to set up Medina as a launch pad, because as things, the turmoil in Mecca, the trials, the tribulations, the boycott, being ostracized in Mecca, the torture and the torment that the Muslims were going through, they needed another place to make migration to. And so Mus'ab ibn Umair, a year and a half before the Hijrah, he is now sent to Medina. And when he's in Medina, he used to go from door to door. He used to live with Ibn Zurara. That was his caretaker. He was one of the early Muslims of Medina, and he used to go door to door and talk to people and recite the Quran to people. And some people will accept it, and some wouldn't. There was an episode where one of the chiefs of the tribes in Medina, they hear that there is this young man that is preaching Islam, and he gets very angry. Usayd ibn Hudayr, and he's the chief of Bani Ashhal, and he comes to Mus'ab ibn Umair while Mus'ab is he's sitting with Ibn Zurara, and he says that, is it you, the one that's been spreading this false religion to all of our people here in Medina? And Mus'ab says, if you like what I have to say, why don't you come and sit and listen? And if you don't like it, then I will simply leave you alone. And so Usayd ibn Hudayr, see, Mus'ab had his way with words. He knew how to, calm down a tense situation and bring people to actually listen to what he had to say. And so Usayd ibn Hudayr says, okay, fine. What do you have to say? And Mus'ab ibn Umair starts to recite some verses from the Quran. And immediately Usayd ibn Hudayr is impacted by these words. And he says, these are beautiful words. And wallahi, I have never in my life have I heard better speech than this. How do I enter into the fold of this religion? And so Mus'ab ibn Umair prescribes to him that you have to, wash yourself and make ghusl, and then say the declaration of faith, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And as Usayd ibn Hudayr does this, and he's going back to his tribe, he's met by Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, who is also another chief of the tribe. And he says, Usayd, you went to take care of our issues with Mus'ab ibn Umair, and now you're coming back with this calm face and you have accepted his religion. He says, wallahi, I have never heard better speech than this. Go and listen to this young man. And so Sa'd ibn Mu'adh also goes to Mus'ab ibn Umair. And Mus'ab ibn Umair, he recites some verses from the Quran to him, and immediately Sa'd ibn Mu'adh also enters into the fold of Islam. Now, these are the chiefs and the leaders of their tribe. So when they go back to their tribe and they tell the people that they have accepted Islam, hordes and hordes of people, their tribe, the followers, also accept Islam. And this is how Mus'ab ibn Umair converted so many people in Medina. Now we go to, and so Mus'ab ibn Umair, he's the first ambassador of Islam. He was the first ambassador. He was the first person that the Prophet ﷺ sent out to spread the message of Islam into a distant land. That's Mus'ab ibn Umair, the first ambassador of Islam. In the Battle of Badr, the Muslims are now settled and they're stationed in Medina. The Prophet ﷺ, he is with them, and we know the miraculous victory that the Muslims had at the Battle of Badr, and they took some prisoners of war. One of those prisoners of war was the brother of Mus'ab ibn Umair. He's one of the brothers. And when he was being held in captivity, Mus'ab ibn Umair, he sees his brother and one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and he looks to the companion and he says, oh my brother, take care of this one because his mother is rich and we could probably get a lot of ransom from her. And his brother says, you're calling me brother, right? And this is something that Mus'ab ibn Umair understood, the same way that Nuh alayhi salam understood, that our real brothers were our brothers in faith. Those are our real brothers. And that even though his brother who's in captivity is his blood brother, he has distanced himself from him because he is on the path of the mushrikeen, and Mus'ab ibn Umair is on the path of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam on al-Islam. And so this was a critical moment for people to understand the family dynamics of how the Muslims, although they treated their family members with honor and they treated them with izzah and dignity, that they had a level of self-respect for their deen, and that they separated themselves from the mushrikeen, making this the number one criteria of brotherhood. So After the battle of Badr, of course, we have the battle of Uhud, and this is where Mus'ab ibn Umair will forever be remembered on the battle of Uhud. On that day, as we know, the Muslims were actually winning the battle, and the archers, they were told that by the Prophet ﷺ, that stay on this mount, on this hill, and do not move, even if you see the birds eating our bodies. Do not move from this hill. And so, as the battle ensued, and it looked like the Muslims had sure victory, the companions at the time made an unconscious mistake. They saw the spoils of war, they saw the armor, they saw the gold, they saw all of that, and they started to come towards it, and they left their mount, leaving the instruction of the Prophet ﷺ. And at this time, Khalid bin Walid had a resurgence with his army, and he went around the mountain and he attacked from the back. He attacked from the back. And this was at a time, this critical moment was when the Prophet ﷺ his life was in extreme danger. And we know that his helmet, dug into his face, and that he actually was bloody during the battle of Uhud. And so Mus'ab ibn Umair, being the standard bearer, the carrier of the flag that said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Mus'ab ibn Umair would have that flag, and he sees this. He sees that the army is now coming down the hill towards the Muslims, and more specifically to take the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And he starts to create commotion, and he starts to move people away from the Prophet ﷺ by saying the takbir, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And this was a sign of strength, that when the standard bearer, when the flag bearer is still alive, that the army is alive and well, and they are not retreating, that they are still fighting. And so Mus'ab ibn Umair, he immediately sees this, and he tries to divert the mushrikeen away from the Prophet ﷺ. And this is the decision that he made, that do I love myself more, or do I love Muhammad ﷺ more? And this is something that I want us to pause right now while we're on the battlefield and thinking about this, where Mus'ab ibn Umair has said, it's either the messenger of God ﷺ, or it's going to be me. Now, you and I, we will never be asked to make such a choice. The choice that we're asked to make is that when our alarm clock goes off at 4 a.m. in the morning, and we are getting ready to hit the snooze button, we're asking ourselves, the question that we have to be asking is, Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam worth more than my sleep, right? In Mus'ab ibn Umair's case, it was his life. But we're never going to be asked to make that choice. We're not on a battlefield. When we're in the middle of a business negotiation and we're being asked to do something unethical, we're asking, is the Prophet ﷺ more to me, or is this business deal more to me? Is what Islam tells me, is that more for me, or is what I can potentially make in the short term better for me? And for Mus'ab ibn Umair, it was clear that it is either the Prophet ﷺ and he has to live on, or it's going to be me. It's going to be me, and he starts to bring all of the people towards him. And so the swordsmen of the Quraysh come towards him, and one of the horsemen, he swipes at Mus'ab ibn Umair, and he chops off his right arm. And at this time, Mus'ab ibn Umair, he switches the standard the flag into his left arm, and then he chops off his left arm, and he immediately takes the flag, and he's able to hold it what's left of his arms, right? And by the end of this episode of when they were attacking Mus'ab ibn Umair, it is said that he had over 70 cuts, stabs, and wounds on his body. And he was one of the shuhada, one of the martyrs that was left at the end of Battle of Uhud. And as with Sayyidina Hamza and so many other prominent Sahabi that were killed on that monumentous day. It was a huge loss for the Muslims. It was it really brought down their morale. And the Prophet ﷺ, he advised all of the companions that when you see the shuhada on the battlefield, say salam to them. And so they go and they say, Assalamu alaikum. to all of the martyrs. Now, one thing, as Mus'ab ibn Umair, when he was dying, when he was on the battlefield, one of the things he kept saying is that Muhammad is but a messenger and many messengers have come before him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he made this an ayah in the Quran to honor Mus'ab ibn Umair. This is an ayah in the Quran that has been there to honor Mus'ab ibn Umair, that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is but a messenger and many messengers have come before him. And so if he passes, if today was his day, fateful day that he passes, then will you then turn on your heels and leave the way of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? This was a question, rhetorical question that's being asked of everybody. And of course the answer is no. The message is true, and we continue with this message even until today. And so when they found the body of Mus'ab ibn Umair, and he was just wearing, very raggedy sheepskin clothing of what was left in it, the garment that he was covered in. Remember who he was. He was somebody that used to get tailored fitted clothes. He had the best sense that people used to be able to smell him from blocks away. He was somebody that women used to line up because of his beauty and how handsome he was. They used to line up along his path and along his route, and they used to, look at him just to see him. And today, here he is lying on this battlefield, this young man who was the first ambassador of Islam. And this is something that tells us that, when we say that our youth is our tomorrow, no, instead, our youth is our today. The Prophet ﷺ, he relied on the youth, Mu'adh ibn Jabal and Mus'ab ibn Umair and others. These were young people that held up the pillars of Islam on those early days. And so when they saw him, the garment was so small covering his body that when they covered his face, his feet would show. And then when they covered his feet, his upper torso and his head would show. And so what the Prophet ﷺ said is that let's cover his face. And then they told him to put some grass on his feet to cover him. And the Prophet ﷺ, he was extremely, extremely upset. And he was in tears. And he looked at Mus'ab and he says that, amongst us are real men. Amongst us are real men who have fulfilled their covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Mus'ab ibn Umair was one of those people. And he and I, we will meet in Jannah once again, inshallah. And so we also pray that these beautiful and amazing men who, because of them, Islam has lived on, that we are here today in the United States and we're able to utter the words of La ilaha illallah. It's because of these people like Mus'ab ibn Umair, who literally sacrificed everything that they had, all the luxuries that he left behind. He could have easily said, I'm young, I've got so much life to live. Why would I give all of this up? Why would I give up all of this luxury? When he heard something good, he was drawn to it. He capitalized on the message. He entered Islam, both hands and both feet, and he sacrificed and gave everything. And that's why his station is what it is. That's why his maqam is where it is. And that's why we talk about him today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala join us with his beautiful companions, and may we have the companionship and the company of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all of his friends in the afterlife. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.